Hello YouTube. Lake Hergas-Nur is a drainless, salty lake with low-lying desert shores located at an altitude of 1,028 meters in western Mongolia in the basin of large lakes. The group of these lakes belongs to the relict reservoirs that have preserved life in the water environment since pre-Glacial times. They escaped the continental glaciation and represent the remains of ancient large reservoirs that existed in the Mesozoic era and occupied the entire area of the basin. About 2.5 million years ago, a single ancient large body of water broke up into a number of isolated reservoirs due to climate change and desiccation. Mysterious footprints periodically appear on the shore of the Mongolian lake Hergas-Nur. In the summer of 2023, a group of Russian researchers visited the reservoir. In their opinion, no matter how fantastic it may sound, the footprints may belong to a large prehistoric reptile that has existed on Earth since the pre-glacial period. But this was just the latest expedition. Initially, mysterious large footprints were discovered in the mid-1980s on the shore of Hergas-Nur by participants of a Soviet Mongolian geological expedition. In 1989, a publication about the mystery of Lake Hergas-Nur appeared for the first time in the magazine Природа, Soviet magazine Природа. According to eyewitnesses, along the western sloping shore of the pebble sandbank, 8 groups of large footprints were observed, similar to those that were discovered in 1985. All of them were quite fresh. In addition to large footprints, small footprints were already found on the eastern shore of the sandbank. They did not exceed half a meter in diameter, and the height of the sides bounding them was up to 20 to 25 centimeters. The tracks are associated with the movement of large, 10 to 20 kilograms, boulders. Rather large furrows in sand stretch from them to the water, which recorded the violent nature of the movement of boulders, as well as the direction of their movement from the lake to the shore. Thus, it can be said that traces of stable morphology and size periodically appear in some areas here. They form in areas of the coast that are largely visited by people and pets. I should say rarely visited by people and pets. The time of occurrence of footprints is the middle of summer. All the arguments are in favor of their animal origin. We believe that they correspond to the places where large animals crawl out. It can be assumed that the weight of these creatures is a ton or more. They can reach 1 to 1.5 meters in width and up to 8 meters in length. The number of these animals seems to be small. Later, geologists stopped in the area several more times, and each time they saw several groups of relatively fresh footprints stretching 1.5 kilometers out of the water, as if several giant reptiles had crawled out of the lake and even lay on the sand there for a while. A mysterious creature that leaves clawed footprints on the beach and makes trumpeting sounds on hot nights over the lake. The assumption that these footprints belong to an animal living on land or were left by humans was rejected, as well as the fact that they cannot be formed by waves or wind. In addition to all the speculation and rumors, one night geologists heard a roar coming from the middle of the lake. So a group of amateur researchers led by Russian writer and public personality Igor Grishin also visited that lake. The Russians armed themselves with good equipment, including the latest echo sounders. According to Grishin, with their help, it was possible to find the same oblong footprints on the bottom of the lake as on land. According to the researchers, they may have been left by several crawling individuals of different sizes or left by different parts of the body of the same animal. In addition, the Russian researchers observed furrows on the shore resembling traces of stones along which animals could move. Rummaging through the literature, they found out that the inhabitants of ancient reservoirs, for example, plesiosaurs, swallowed stones. Without them, they couldn't digest food. Again, earlier in 2010, in addition to footprints of different sizes, researchers found bones, in their opinion, could not belong to any other animal in Mongolia. Quite often, they fished with fangs, so to say, but it is known that only one species of fish lives in this lake, the Altai osman, which has no teeth, according to Grecian. Now, per the researchers, the inhabitants of Khargas Nur may be a giant ancient reptile. This is a relict animal that has remained on Earth since the pre-Glacial period, according to Valery Nikolaev, researcher at the Valdai National Park, a zoologist. According to him, in the southern parts of the planet, including Central Asia, not everything was covered with ice. The Mongolian lakes in this area are considered by scientists to be part of the ancient Pleistocene Sea, and the fish, the very Altai osman I mentioned before and will mention again, which the mysterious reptile can feed on, belongs to relict species. After the publication in the magazine Priroda and subsequent expedition within the framework of the Soviet-Mongolian geological expedition in the years 1985, 1987, 1989, and 1990, as well as special expeditions of Russian cryptozoologists to Lake Khargas Nur in 2010 and 2014, the topic of the surviving prehistoric reptile acquired new details and began to be actively discussed. The main sensation was the assumption or the hypothesis that unknown large animals can inhabit the waters of Khargas Nur and are prehistoric ichthyosaurs, whose population has miraculously survived in the waters of this relict lake since pre-glacial times. A highway has now been laid on the pebble sandbank of Chatsargany Shugum, along which Russian tourists have begun to come regularly in recent years in the hope of catching a mysterious monster crawling out of the lake. Could these footprints, by the way, have something to do with the legendary Mongolian worm Olkhoi Khorkhoi? Although it is rumored to inhabit the Gobi Desert, and I urge you to see my videos about it, you will learn quite a few things. The probability that it may appear in other uninhabited places is quite high, especially where the soil is quite moist and soft, for example, on the shore of a lake. Let's look at more observations and look at different points of view. You see, specimens that were bitten are often found among the fish caught in the lake, although, like I said, there are no predatory fish with teeth in the lake. And this bites, according to cryptozoologists, is proof of the habitat of a fanged monster in the lake. Once again, the participants of the Mongolian-Russian expedition were awakened at night by a powerful roar coming from the middle of the lake. Also, it is said that the local population believes in the habitat of what they call whales in the depth of the lake. So, according to some observers, they avoid visiting its shores and don't swim in the lake. To some, those who really doubt the presence of any cryptids in the lake, all the stated facts, upon careful analysis, turn out to be only an indirect confirmation of the myth, and in fact may relate to completely different, quite understandable phenomenon. Those who are not convinced that we're dealing with cryptids are sure that over time new facts of observations will appear and the scientists will be able to accurately explain the nature of these mysterious footprints. In fact, there are indeed photographs that recorded, however, not the animal itself, but only footprints on a pebble beach from stretching something heavy, or traces, I should say, stretching something heavy from the water's edge deep into the beach by 5 to 6 meters. But as can be seen in the photos, there's not a single trace or footprint or fur from a crawling animal, but a wide strip of intersecting footprints, sometimes up to a wide strip of intersecting tracks, sometimes up to 15 meters wide, as from the movement of something giant and made from iron, squeezing large pebbles and boulders onto the edges when moving. Indeed, according to the doubters, there are no predators, seals or otters in the lake that can leave bite marks on the body of the fish. The dark silhouettes of large Altai Osman fish, more than 100 of them can be seen at the same time, are well observed in clear water from the rocks of the southern shore of the lake. And the Mongols do swim in the lake. They swim and they do it quite a lot. There is a tourist base on the south side of the lake in the summertime, and the local inhabitants, a Mongolian population, from this tourist base swim and frolic in the lake water. And apparently there are also videos about spearfishing on the Altai Osman fish. And a highway runs along the northern shore of the lake close to the water's edge along the entire lake. The road connects the center of Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, with the city of Ulang and the Borshu state crossing point across the Mongolian-Russian border. The road to the geographical center of Asia, Tuvan Kizil. Therefore, it is not entirely correct to assert that the lake shore is deserted because transit vehicles can be seen there, and a number of people too. As for the clawed footprints in the sand, not at all in the subject, but life-bearing ancient fish-eating ichthyosaurs lived in seawater and were not able to get out on land and crawl as stated in article. So let's remember about the seawater. 1.5 kilometers inland. Their skeletons have been found and their appearances well known to scientists. They don't have any paws with claws. A small animal up to 2 meters long with elongated jaws had only fins and never went ashore. Their larger relatives, plesiosaurs, reached the size of 15 to 20 meters, also did not have claws and lived in water. They had fins and did not go ashore. The heavy jaws and teeth of these animals are more likely to bite the fish than leave faint bite marks on it. Therefore, even if we assume that these long extinct animals would suddenly appear in the Mongolian Hergas-Nur reservoir, fantastically penetrating our time from the past, they would hardly be able to crawl ashore due to their anatomical body features and leave traces of non-existent claws on the sand. An incomprehensible fragment of a large vertebra of an animal, the bone has not fossilized, which means it belongs to our era. Discovered in 2010 by the expedition of the Russian traveler Grishin on the shore of the lake, has not yet been dated by professional paleontologists, and therefore it is too early to say whether it belongs to a modern or prehistoric animal, and whether it is proof of the existence, for example, of a living one of the prehistoric ichthyosaurs, who is living in our age. So I wanted you to hear the viewpoint of those who who reject this hypothesis of a cryptid inhabiting the Mongolian lake. By the way, in the year 2000, the area around Lake Hergas-Nur was declared a national park and received the status of protected area. Let me describe it a little bit. It's a very picturesque lake, and the most picturesque place on the lake is located on the southern coast. Here the shore is decorated with beautiful rocky cliffs made of white rocks with traces of noticeable centuries-old erosion of the surface. Some of them reach the height of 20 meters. Cormorant birds, colonies, nest on isolated cliffs that protrude steeply from the emerald water. And it's like honeycombs in a hive, and densely cover the entire rocky surface of their peaks. There, among the steep rocky cliffs on the shore, there are amazingly beautiful, perfectly round lagoons surrounded on all sides by sheer white cliffs. Okay, now let me give you some other information, some other point of view. You see, the Russian explorer of lakes as well as paranormal phenomena of the Far East and other parts of the planet, Master Go, that's his name, has conducted expeditions to Yakutia, Mongolia, China, as well as the Balkans. He has researched this Mongolian lake in detail and continues to do so. And you will find some of the photographs in his video. On one of them, he has outlined with a blue dotted line what, from his point of view, is nothing less than a group of unknown inhabitants of Hargas Nur on the deserted shore of the lake. Why does he think there is a pack of monsters, as he calls them in the photo? Let's go point by point. 1. The coast is located quite far from traditional nomads. 2. The coast is like a quicksand. Camels do not approach such shores and do not approach the water. That is in response to those who state that the roar heard in the area is made by camels. 3. Camels do not drink this water. It is salty. And there is nothing to say about other animals known to us. I don't think they would drink it too. 4. He knows the shores of the lake well. He almost drowned 2 jeeps there himself while exploring. It is quite unsafe to approach the water even on foot in this place. 5. You can see how the flock tends to the water. Only 1 object out of 10 has moved away to a distance that Go estimates to be 100 meters. 6. Photos from different dates confidently tell us that we're not seeing boulders or stones. 7. The size of the objects is significant according to Go's estimates. The objects are several times larger than any domestic or wild animal in Mongolia, and the shape is strange. Several objects are strongly elongated in length. 8. Taking into the account his other research, and it's quite extensive, the finds of the expeditions of the USSR era and the conclusions of scientists, it can be assumed that the cryptosaurs of Lake Hargas Nur are depicted in the photos. Now let's look at the situation in the winter. You see, Go presented materials on the winter at Hargas Nur and on the breeding capabilities of large unknown animals in winter conditions. Lake Hargas Nur is located in the intermountain basin of the Mongolian Altai Mountains. The place has a sharply continental climate. The height of the lake above sea level is 1,000 meters, and I stated that more. Frosts in winter can reach minus 53 degrees Celsius here, and in combination with heavy winds, make it impossible for most animals and birds known to us to stay on the lake. They would perish. The lake is covered with ice. But maps of the ice situation and satellite images show the presence of polynya, a permanent hole in the sea ice of natural origin. Naturally occurring area of open water surrounded on all sides by sea ice. Polynya is a Russian word, but it's internationally accepted to describe the condition I just told you. The polynyas, oddly enough, are located where we most often detect the appearance of lake monsters on that lake. See for yourself. You can see a lake that has fallen asleep under the ice and a black polynya located almost in the geometric center of the relict reservoir. The polynya is located behind the cape of the longest sandbank, which juts out into the lake for 14 kilometers. You see, Go measured the polynya itself. What if there won't be enough air for the monsters to breathe? He applied a virtual ruler and got 1,278 meters. Will this polynya be of sufficient size, a kilometer or more? Let's zoom in on the camera and look at the edge that adjoins the sandbank. Do you see a light band under the green water? This is an underwater ridge, a continuation of the sandbank. Go used echo sounder on this ridge himself. Its peculiarity is that there's fish presence above it. And if it's there in the summer, then most likely it will also be there in the winter. This is how the tip of the sandbank looks in the summer. In winter, it is especially convenient for monsters to breathe and feed. When the lake is heavily covered with snow, the polynya is alive. It's a little smaller, but it's still hundreds of meters of open water. But there is something else in his rare photos. Someone or something was crawling out of this polynya. Then it crawled through the snow, and it was coming back. And there are furrows that can be observable from a great altitude in those pictures. I don't have too many pictures, and there's not really much available material about this lake, but I will continue telling you more about Mongolia, its strange lakes, and its paranormal phenomena. It's fascinating, from abominable snowmen to underground cities, lost civilizations, and so forth. Fascinating area, and you can see more in my other videos about Mongolia and the Far East, and I urge you to please tell others about my research. Please like my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you can help my research, you can do so through the links you'll find in the description to this video. Thank you again for all your attention to my work.